Hello, this is Alberto, Technical Leader within Customer Experience Centers. In this video, I am going to guide you through the steps to configure BGP Route Aggregation using ASet and suppress map arguments. Here is the topology that we are going to use. First, take a look at what you have configured on router 1. You can see 3 external peers configured, and you can also see if they are up with the command show IP BGP summary. You can see that router 1 is receiving 4 prefixes from routers 2 and 3. Now, take a look at router 1's BGP table. You can see a total of 8 prefixes. For this example, you are going to focus on what router 4 receives from router 1. Here's router 4's BGP table. You can see all the prefixes on the respective AS path for each of these prefixes. Now, the first thing you are going to do is to create an aggregate for the prefixes received from router 2. Then you are going to take a look at how router 4's BGP table changes. For that, you are going into global configuration mode and then enter router configuration mode for BGP in router 1. Once in router configuration mode, you are going to configure the command aggregate address 10.2.2.0 with a /30 subnet mask. This command summarizes the prefixes received from router 2. For now, you are going to leave it as it is. Check to see how router 1's BGP table changed. You now see our aggregate route, which includes all the prefixes received from router 2. Take a look at router 4's BGP table now. Notice that router 4 has the aggregate originated at router 1 and also the specific prefixes which have the complete AS path. Now create another aggregate for the prefixes received from router 3. But this time, you want to advertise only the aggregate route. This is done by adding the summary only argument to the aggregate address command. Now, look at router 1's BGP table. You can see the aggregate route and also you see the specific prefixes flagged as suppressed. This causes router 1 to send only the aggregate route to router 4. Look at router 4's BGP table now. Now, you only see the aggregate for the prefixes that router 1 receives from router 3. Notice how the AS path is no longer showing 65333 but only 65111. In any closed network, this aggregate information propagates through BGP and back to one of the autonomous systems that the complete AS path lists. This propagation creates the possibility of a loop. To overcome this situation, you can use the ASet argument in the aggregate address command. This preserves the AS path when originating the summary. Look at how this is done. You are going into router configuration mode again in router 1. And then you are going to configure the aggregate address command with the ASet argument. Now, if you look at router 4's BGP table, you see the AS path is inherited by the aggregate route. This way, when this aggregate reaches the autonomous system that originated the specific prefix or prefixes, it detects its own autonomous system in the AS path and discards the aggregate, preventing routing loops. Look now at how you can select which routes to be suppressed in an aggregate. Start by removing the 2 aggregates that you currently have. Make sure you no longer have the aggregate in router 1's BGP table. What you are going to do now is to create an aggregate for 10.2.0.0/15. This covers all the prefixes that router 1 is receiving from both routers 2 and 3. However, you want to suppress only the prefixes received from router 2. To do this, you have to create a route map that matches the prefixes that are being received from router 2. First, you need a prefix list to match those prefixes. This prefix list matches all prefixes with the subnet mask less than or equal to 32 down to 30, which fall under the specified /30 range. Then you create the route map that is added to the aggregate to suppress these prefixes. Now you're going to match our newly created prefix list. Now enter router configuration mode and configure the aggregate. This aggregate route covers all the prefixes received from router 2 and router 3. However, as mentioned earlier, you only want to suppress prefixes received from router 2 and leave the ones received from router 3 unsuppressed. For that, you are going to add a suppress map matching the route map that you have just created for this suppression. This has these effects. Prefixes received from router 2 are not advertised because they are being suppressed. Summary route is advertised along with prefixes received from router 3 because these are not being matched for suppression. Look at router 1 BGP table. You can see the prefixes coming from router 2 flagged as suppressed, and you can also see our new aggregate route. Now look at router 4's BGP table. You can see how only prefixes that router 1 receives from router 2 are not received in router 4, and prefixes received from router 3 are not being suppressed. You can also combine suppress mat with the ASet argument to preserve the AS path in the aggregate. Take a look at the outcomes of this configuration in router 1. Now look at router 4's BGP table. You can see that our aggregate route now shows our 3 autonomous systems. This is because even though you are only suppressing prefixes from router 2, the aggregate includes prefixes from router 3 from the perspective of router 1, which is originating this aggregate. Thank you for watching.